On the goes until 9.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I'm gonna work.
Oh, somebody's presenting today.
Why gave it away?
The telltale sign. Good. All right, I guess we're ready to start today's meeting. Is the recording ready?
Yes, the recording has started.
All right, thank you. So call the meeting to order. Yeah. Sorry, I don't. I'll use my fist. Just don't be nearby when it starts swinging. Okay, so welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Hopefully everybody had a good holiday season and bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to start a new year with a technical advisory committee meeting on the first business Monday. So with that, we will call the meeting to order and I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Jeff Sims,
Here.
Mike Williams,
Here.
Brian McCarthy,
Here.
Jonathan Scott,
Here.
Michael English is excused, Bob Fry, Anna Quinones, Laura Lenhart, Gina Du, Bob Campbell,
Here.
Jesus Peraza Garcia,
Here.
Brent Coffenauer,
Here virtually.
Jay Collins,
Present.
Melissa Leinhard,
Here.
Marcela Jimenez Ramirez.
I'm present.
Are you virtual today?
Yes, ma'am, virtual.
Thank you. Lama Alpha C. I'm counting 7 in person.
There's 9.
We're seeing 9 in the room.
Okay, I've got Jeff Sims, Mike Williams, Brian McCarthy, Jonathan Scott, Bob Campbell, Jesus, Jay, Melissa, Lama. Okay, yes, we do have an in-person quorum.
All right.
Physically, I'm here. The rest of me is elsewhere.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up is public comment. Public comment. Do we have anybody that wishes from the public that wishes to speak or is online? Sounds like that's a no. So with that, we will move on. Okay. So next up is the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have questions or comments related to the minutes? I had one. I don't believe I was here for the November meeting. Do you remember? Were you chair for that?
Jay says I was.
Okay. So just as a note, it said that Chair Sims called the meeting to order at 1:32 for the November 4th meeting. I was actually not present. My alternate was here. So it's just a minor notation. Okay. And then she's not here. I thought at the last meeting, I don't have my notes, but that Gina from the airport might have been present, but she was shown as being absent. Just maybe double check that. I could have sworn I remembered her answer a question about the airport, but it might have been an older meeting. But
We'll double check it, confirm, update the record.
anyone else with comments? All right, with that, can we get a motion? I guess since there's no comments on either, can I have a single motion to approve both the November and December meeting?
Jay Collins, motion to approve November 4th and December 4th, with the comments by Chair Sims.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Jesus with the second. Guess there'll be no further comment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are officially in and approved. Next up is the first action item, election of officers.
Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. This is our annual, or the TAC's annual election of officers and review of attendance. So Chair, if you'd like to kind of break those in pieces, the first is the election of officers. The current officers are Jeff Sims as your chair, Mike Williams as your vice chair, and Jay Collins as the officer at large. There are no term limits for standing committee officers, so be reelected and serve indefinitely. Chair, I'll defer to you whether you would like to do it all three positions at once or do them individually.
Well, let's, I guess, just have some initial discussion and we'll decide depending on who has an interest in serving. So let me ask, does anybody not currently on the board have an interest in being in one of these positions? It's not a high paying position. Certainly welcome anybody to cycle through if you're interested. I mean, I've been doing it for many years. I will keep doing it, but you know, I certainly wouldn't have any problem if somebody thought the style was a little old and I could pass it, but try to keep things a little lighthearted. But again, if anybody wants to, then my next question would be, would you two gentlemen like to continue to act in your current roles?
Sure. I
Mike,
would say the same. There's nobody that's.
Yeah, same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, open for any comments or discussion, but with that, well, I guess this would be a motion, so I can't make it. So I guess someone would need to make the motion to retain the three existing, what would you call these, officers in their current roles for the next year.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to retain existing officers for year 2020.
Very well stated. Do I have a motion from Bob? Do we have a second?
So second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Zeus and Melissa, take your pick on the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. You're gonna regret that decision.
Just kidding.
There are two other quick things, but that's just the action. We are required to do an attendance review, and y'all have done an amazing job with quorum. There was only one meeting last month in December where we didn't have it. In reviewing the attendance, there were two different members who had 3 consecutive absences, but there were extenuating circumstances, and we've also moved to work with those individuals to update their alternates. So just if you're comfortable with the membership as is, that would be staff's recommendation.
I have a question.
Yeah, Mike, Brian.
Just regarding the T-bar to dissolve, is that correct? Is that one of them that would kind of come off of this list?
Well, they've been vague. I don't think they're even on here anymore.
They're number 4
Oh,
from
you're
the
right. They're vacant, so they don't impact our forum, but that is point well taken. They don't exist. We'll work offline to get them removed from the roster. No.
Yeah, since they were probably like a consideration for 2024, this is a review of 2024, I guess it's okay to be on there, but it certainly doesn't make sense to keep it on there if they're not even an option. So that's a good observation.
If I may,
Yes.
that is correct, Chair, because they were still in existence for 2024. That's why they are there. But because they no longer exist, they are removed for 2025.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, thanks, Gavin.
Every now and then, I guess, right. My only real notation, I know we look at this every year, the city of Tampa transportation, is that one that they're actively looking to find a replacement?
My understanding is that they're staffing up, so we can work with them offline to see if we can get a committee member assigned.
Okay, because of all the ones that I see, I think they would maybe have the most relevant input to some of the things we discuss. So
Yeah, they're trying to hire somebody.
okay, yeah,
But it should say, so.
it just seems like that's another voice that I think could be reassured.
And just
Okay.
one other Is the Florida Trucking Association, are they planning to? For a while.
I mean, they haven't had anybody on, since I've been doing this. I think it's close to a decade. But
That might be worthwhile to look into, and I'll talk with Gail offline about what the ramifications would be to just remove them entirely if the recent history is that it's been vegan.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind them being on here, but I mean,
I have no problem with it either, but if they're never gonna be here and they don't even have a person, then
Yeah, that makes sense.
kind of what's the point? So, okay.
Well, if there are no other comments on that, there was just one other thing I wanted to seek your direction on. Given that it's the new year, I thought maybe we could start that off by me sending around a survey to ask for feedback, just generally on your satisfaction with the TAC, what's working well, what are some things that maybe we could try differently. I really see this group of people as like the big, one of many brain trusts, like so much great expertise is in this room. So if there are things that we can do that of course like meet the regulatory requirements of having a TAC, but also, just increase the utility and value the TAC brings to you all individually in your work products. We would love to do that. So just throwing some options out. Maybe you want to hear more about projects. Maybe you want to take a field trip to some new projects that were completed. Or maybe there's something in your own individual capacity that would be helpful to get TAC input. So if you all are okay with me drafting a survey just to solicit your feedback, I can bring that back at a later meeting or any changes desired.
sure, it's fine by me. I mean, it sounds like it would be open for discussion, but yeah, I'm always open for ideas. Again, I've been doing this a long time and the meetings can get stale after a while. You guys do a good job of trying to bring different topics in, but opportunities could be out there, yes.
Elizabeth, is that something that all of the TPO committees are doing right now to survey membership?
Well, I got the idea from Sarah Cooper, who did it for their Citizens Advisory Committee. So I'm not sure about the other ones, but I thought it was a good idea,
Yeah.
something worthwhile to bring to you all. Yep. All right, well, I'll work on that and get back to you later.
Okay, that's it for topic A, and the next up is item B, 2025 safety performance goals.
Happy New Year, committee, Connor and Travis McDonald, TPO staff. Presentation of. All right, Connor, Travis McDonald, TPO staff here to present the 2025 safety performance targets. For a refresher, although many of you are familiar with this, there's 5 categories of targets that are required by the TPOs under the MAP 21 legislation and then renewed under the FAST Act. The goal is to create a streamlined, performance-based and multimodal program to address the many challenges facing the US transportation system. Again, there are 5 categories of targets. Some other ones, for examples, are being bridge condition, reliability, transit assets. So our safety performance targets, there's 7 metrics within that. 5 are required and then 2 are elected by the CPO. The required being number of fatalities on a 5-year rolling operation. What's the type of their rate of fatalities are over 100 million miles traveled, number of serious injuries, rate of serious injuries, the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, and then the ones that the CPO elects, the number of fatalities on flat for each year, and then motorcycle fatalities on a 5-year. So some key definitions, although I know the TAC for experts on this, 100 million vehicle miles traveled. Is the total number of miles traveled by a motor vehicle in a region over a certain period of time. A serious or incapacitating injury for this, for the purposes of this presentation, is a significant injury that causes permanent damage or loss of bodily function, and non-motorized would be a bicyclist or pedestrian. So I did take the time this year to look more into best practices or current trends in safety target setting. So they're required not only by UPOs, but state DOTs as well. About 37% are using a data-driven approach, which is what I would classify us as using. 16 are using a goal-driven approach, which is based on future goal, whether fixed annual % reductions or future safety performance target. So that would be something like 50 years, 25 years from now, reaching a target of 0 fatalities, and increment to there. And then hybrid, so using a combination of data-driven and goal-driven is about 41% of the responding agencies. So before I get into the targets, we are seeing a significant reduction this year from about 236 to 107, which is quite a bit. And this is, I did reach out to FGT and some state offices just to make sure the data is being reported the same, you know, no discrepancies, no differences, and no one identified any. So good news, we're receiving a reduction and we're recommending a target without 1% reduction factor that you may remember in the past 156. Now, the point of bringing up the best practices and current trends is that I feel that setting up 1% reduction on such a low number would be both goal-driven and data-driven. So we're kind of going forward a little bit more into what's more popular or the best practices of them. So the target for annual actual fatalities would be 156. Annual fatalities on a 5-year rolling average at 204. Fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled on a 5-year rolling average at 1.34, down from 1.47 last year, or last year, 5 years. Motorcycle fatalities, we have seen some differences, you know, not as a trend that's consistent, and did rise last year. So the 5-year rolling average is about a little over 41, so the reduction target would be 40. Serious injuries, we are seeing a decrease here as well, with the recommended target being 957. Serious injury rate on a 5-year rolling average, the recommended target being 6.22. Annual non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, the recommended target is 236. In our report card, you can see that we had 5 of the 7 targets we set last year. 2 that did not meet being motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries in the 5-year rolling average. And in the last column, you can see those 2025 targets all together. For some context, Hillsborough is down 33%. The Hillsborough and Peel area is down 33%. Compared to Metro within Orlando, down 23%, and Ellis down 17%, and Broward up by 1%. So some takeaways: fatalities significantly decreased in calendar year 2024, and motorcycle fatalities and overall serious injury targets now met. So what can we do? The MPO and local governments like yourselves can design and prioritize safety projects and local CIPs. They can continue to program safety studies in the UPWP, and specifically program motorcycle safety study in upcoming UPWP, so that will be a conversation we have then. And continue prioritizing safety projects that are lower cost and are shovel ready. Again, that report card, fatalities no more than 6 on a 5-year rolling average, no more than 204 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, no more than 1.34. Motorcycles 40.93. Serious injuries no more than 957. On a 100 million vehicle miles traveled rate, no more than 6.22. And non-motorized fatalities, serious injuries, no more than 236. So the recommended action today is to approve these safety performance targets and recommend approval to the board. And I have to take any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, Connor. We have comments.
Very much for the presentation. 2 quick questions. As for the first target, you said it's 156.
Yes.
Is it based on comparable studies? Like, how did you come up with the reduction in fatality?
Yeah, so the 1% reduction factor, and sorry for not explaining that presentation, it is based off of available funding for safety. So that's identified in our 2045 LRTP is also identified as a federal highway best practice. They appreciate that 1%.
The other question is, for the other indices, did you identify or specify the numbers based on the statistical models you developed?
As far as like, so the numbers that we use to get to these.
Can you go to one of the charts
Yeah,
before that? So for instance, here,
Mhm.
how did you come up with the 236? Is it based on the statistical model that you built? Based on the data?
So this one being a 5-year rolling average, it would predict the 2025 number and then apply a 1% reduction factor. So the rolling average may be something like, so last year from 2020 to 2024 was 238. And then we predict a number going into 2025.
Based on the statistical model, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments?
I have a question. The fatalities overall were down, which is great. Has anybody looked at that to kind of figure out how or why? I mean, it's a good thing, don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, was something really working well that maybe we need to do more of, or was it just good luck? Was it, you know?
Right. We are, when I talked to FTOT, some representatives there, they expressed that they are just seeing those numbers as they, as they finish in 2024 with Marcy's lots, not quite 100% until about February or March when those numbers are exact. I think that's when we'll probably look more into what was working. We did have a concern that it was reporting, didn't have this difference. We did look into that, they didn't identify anything. So I don't know from 1 year to 1 year was caused such a major difference. I mean, like you said, we're happy that it did, but we'll definitely research more when those numbers are fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I remember this. This is always a touchy topic, kind of when you're talking about fatalities and injuries as your measures, and unfortunately that's, there isn't really an easy way to do it. But I remember back in 2021, they were trying to identify why was there the spike, it jumped up 255 and there was, talking about COVID and whether more people travel and something like that. So it certainly is a great thing. I think what I kind of keyed on here, that's a little bit more a trend is the serious injuries. It's a consistent trend downward. That's a bigger sample size in a way. If you talk about statistics, and I think that is an even more telling. That one is like the there's not that variation, and when you have those like the motorcycle ones, that's unfortunate, but it's tough. You're talking about between 30 and it rose up by 2, but statistically, it's hard to really capture. When you're talking about small numbers and statistics. So I think that was worth noting. And then my other question would be, you may not have an answer now, but the perception is there's more people moving in and there's more travel on the roadways. So I think it's maybe an interesting notation to make that if we're trending downward while also seeing more vehicle miles traveled on the roads, might be something worth noting in future reports, just as a, observation, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe where there's less vehicle miles traveled, but with all the building our agency is seeing, going on everywhere, it's hard for me to think there's not more cars on the roads and more things being traveled. So, something to I think would be an interesting side comparison. But, again, I've seen this. I can't think of a better way to come up with metrics, so I would support it the way it is. But, it is a little touchy to talk about kind of. But certainly I agree with Mike. If there's any ways that you can identify things that tangibly showed we believe this helped really improve the numbers, well, then that should be highlighted and really pushed as an agenda item, for larger scale implementation. There's only so much we can do. People will drive crazy sometimes, but or impaired. We talked in the past about impaired driving affecting the numbers, and transportation planners can do only so much to deal with that. So I will conclude with that, I think. But Bob?
Let me make a statement here. We were, I think Mike's been heavily involved in changing our design standards and other techniques we're using throughout the county. And this particular year, 2025, we're going to do a lot of before and after studies to see which techniques are getting most positive results. So we're starting that this month, and we're applying different things in different locations, and they seem to be working, but we wouldn't know how significant they are. We're taking a systemic approach throughout the county on curves, signage, median closures, those type techniques. And we think we're seeing some positive results, but we want to quantify that. And once we do, we get back to this committee and tell you what we think is working and not working to get these down. Well, a little note, the last couple of weeks, we have seen several deaths. Okay. And, usually in the holiday season, we see more alcohol, speeding and type thing. But there's been some significant deaths that we're addressing right now, so.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments?
And I guess I just have one.
Right.
I know Connor, in your presentation, you don't really touch on this, and I think maybe the DOT community traffic safety team might do this. But just in terms of the causes, like you mentioned before, the DUIs, speeding, whether or not, which one of those are more the higher factor causes of fatalities?
You said, do we look at it?
I remember just attending some of your CTST meetings.
Yes, we do. We use a technique called a Hayden matrix. What that is a 3x3 scale. We're trying to look at crashes before, during, and after. And sometime before a crash happens, you can identify factors that cause crashes, such as looking at your cell phone, or you're drunk and you're looking down rather than up, and those type techniques. We engineers and Vision Zero say we're responsible for designing a facility that is safe. That's the basic core principle of Vision Zero. So we do go in and analyze each crash, why it occurred, those type of things like that. And we have a standing order in our agency is we have to go visit a death site within 24 hours to see if we can see anything. And we'll go back and 3 or 4 months later to get the homicide reports. We'll try to figure out what happened there. So it's just not a statistics, it's an actual event we need to investigate how we approach them.
Just within unincorporated county.
Pardon me?
Just within unincorporated county, or anytime that Hillsborough County Sheriff's reached out to you?
No, on our county-owned facilities. Generally within a municipality, we let the municipality address the issues. So municipalities, say, for example, your municipality, we will look at a crash on or parkway or something of that nature. So it depends on the situation.
And just to clarify with that, these numbers include, that you've shown in the presentation, that's all of Hillsborough County, including the municipalities, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but not the same stuff. Okay, good. To be continued probably as we go along, but, certainly there's no more important topic than safety. So, those things I know, I think circles, the implementation of circles locally, which was a totally new thing here, most of us that grew up around here, has helped a lot, because there might be more low speed collisions, but there's definitely not as many high speed collisions, I think, that you can have at formerly lighted intersections. So anyway, all right, any other, if there's no further comments?
I have more, just
Okay.
a quick question. Again, looking at all of your numbers, do you see like golf cart accidents or fatalities increasing, or are they just pretty much, you probably don't know, but just out of curiosity, if you saw any golf cart related fatalities or injuries? I feel like they're popping up more and more, just the amount that I see on the road. Just curious.
I'm not sure. Let me have that. I can definitely look into it.
Temple Terrace always worried about the golf.
I might say though, southern part of the county, Sun City area, and we've had some incidents.
Right.
Right. So
I wonder, this is just totally, I don't need an answer right now, but I wonder, does a golf cart accident, is that considered a motorized injury or a non-motorized if it's not road worthy? You know what I mean? It's a motorized because it's got a battery, but if it's not legal to be on the street, I wonder if it's considered.
That's out of TAC.
Sorry, I think the data is from Signal 4, right?
Yes.
So Signal 4 doesn't specify specifically, like it doesn't have categories for vehicles, but there are notes fields where there are notes on, let's say, involvement with the pedestrian, or if there are any special circumstances when the crash happened. So I believe this can be a recommendation for Signal 4. So for instance, now e-scooters are everywhere. So there are crashes that involve e-scooters and could be incapacitating or even fatal. So these can be recommendations for Signal 4, which is the official data, crash data in Florida, to include those stats.
I did notice.
I don't think that would happen.
Right. I did notice this year when I pulled the information, there was a field or in the platform, in the, you know, not the data itself, but the platform. You can identify just scooters, so.
Oh, that's-
it's a new.
yeah. Emerging.
All right, and if there's no further comments, we're looking for the motion on the screen. Okay, Lama, can you state the motion for the record?
Yeah, motion to approve recommended actions, approve the 2025 safety performance targets and recommend approval of the TP award.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Jonathan Scott, second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is the Hart Transit Development Plan 2025.
Okay, so good afternoon, TAC. Name is Jesus Garcia, Hart staff. And I'm here to present to you an update on the transit development plan for the 2025-2034 period. We call it an annual progress report, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So what is a transit development plan? It's a multi-year financial and operating plan for transit agencies. FDOT requires this for any agency receiving state funds. We have to develop and adopt a TDP. We do a major update every 5 years. The last major update was in 2022. And we do an annual progress report or minor update every year. And right now we're in the 2024 minor update or annual progress report. This TDP is due March 1st, which is partially why I'm here in front of you early January, so that we are able to submit our TDP on time. So what should an annual progress report contain? So there is a TDP rule that governs the TDP and how they should be put together. An annual progress report should have the accomplishments for the past year, analyze how the implementation plan is going, if we deviated from it, what could we do to get back on track, what new changes we want to make. There is a 10th year, similar to the TIP on the FDOT work program. Every year they have the new last year. So every year we have the new 10th year in our case. We also revise the financial plan and the list of projects and services needed, funded and non-funded needs. The TDP rule changed last summer. So some of the key changes include the extension of the deadline from September 1st to March 1st. There was a lot of issues with the September 1st deadline because the budgeting process was not ready. So we had to put the TDP together knowing when the budget was going to go by. So that's partially why they changed the deadline to March 1st. Another requirement is further collaboration with the MPOs, which is why I'm here today to foster that collaboration with the Hillsborough CPO. And we are also developing a new TDP rule guidance. Once that guidance comes out, we'll know more as to how this document has to be developed or the new things that have to be incorporated into the document. So let's look at our needs. So we have a list of funded needs on the service improvement. So there's operating capital, this operating service improvement. We have the maintenance of existing service. We have frequency improvements on 3 routes, route 7, 9, and 12, which we are hoping to implement this year. And frequency improvements on route 16, which we'll have scheduled for 2027. These frequency improvements mean more buses per hour, which means we need more vehicles. So that's why you see a non-zero value on the capital cost column, because we need more buses to be able to accomplish that. And that's the biggest constraint, filling the operating dollars. More on that later. Additional funded service improvements, we have the Route 1 Fair Fee pilot, which started yesterday. We're very excited about it, funded by the city of Tampa, $1.65 billion. And then there is the streetcar circulator, which is an interim solution to the extension, the streetcar extension, which it hasn't launched yet, but it's It's on a service development grant that's sitting with FDIC right now, and it has funding from the city of Tampa as well. On the capital side, we have some funded and partially funded needs. The heavy maintenance facility, of course, is the big one. We have the replacement of vehicles, both buses and paratransit vans. On the bus side, we're particularly looking at getting rid of diesel buses and replacing them with CNG buses. For the record, we only have like 30% diesel, whereas almost 70% CNG. And other capital projects, including the streetcar rebuild and the CADAVL project. So I'm gonna like break down more the unfunded, more nitty-gritty details. So on the service side, we have frequency improvements that I mentioned. We have new services, so brand new routes, both local and express, and on-demand services as well. The BRT or premium transit corridors and the streetcar extensions. On the capital side, we have the streetcar extension as well, which is the City of Tampa project. The Tampa Ontario BRT enhancements to transit centers like Marion Transit Center and Net Park. New transit centers in East and South County. The replacement of non-revenue vehicles, state-of-the-art repair and fleet expansion. We talked a lot about fleet replacement, but for growing service, you need expansion, you need new vehicles, not replacing old vehicles. So in terms of frequency improvements, this is all our unfunded needs. Our four biggest routes, 16, 34, and 400, we want to bring them back to 15-minute service. Right now, they're every 20 minutes, with the exception of Route 1, that's starting yesterday, is a 1-year pilot for 15-minute service and fare free. We have a couple of 30-minute routes that we want to improve to every 20. Route 12 should be on that. It's not on that list because it's in the funded side of things that I already talked about. We have about 10 hourly routes that we want to bring back to 30-minute service. A lot of these things are coming back to full service levels that I'm going to talk about now for a second. And lastly, we have the two biggest limited express routes that we want to bring back to 30-minute service or bring to 30-minute service. So I keep talking about bringing back. So here you have the three different periods. Our board, the hard board of directors, keeps talking about mission max and COVID. So pre-mission max, pre-COVID, existing. So existing, we're at about 75% of pre-COVID. If you see the third row there, or like 76% of 100, which was pre-COVID. We're also operating with 30 less vehicles. You see the fourth row there. So our operating budget is about 98 million for bus. We need about 15 to 20 more million to go back to pre-COVID, or 20 to 25 to go back to pre-mission max. You'll notice that pre-mission max is only 7% more service than pre-COVID. But that's because a lot of those services got reallocated. So when we went from pre-mission max to pre-COVID, we caught a bunch of service. It was not a net saving. We used those resources and put it somewhere else. And that's why at the bottom of the table, you see there is an extra 10 million if you want to bring those amounts back. Because again, those resources, they were not like, they didn't disappear, they were used for something else. So, and that 10 million is on top of the 15 to 25. So more unfunded transit needs, we have the premium services, the TDP in 2022 identified like 8 BRT corridors. And also the streetcar extension. Sorry, nothing about the BRT, TDP. The other projects that have been out in recent years are the streetcar extension and some of the RIA projects, the City of Tampa RIA projects like the ESX South Tampa project and the Southern Strathway BRT. A lot of these projects need to be evaluated, and I keep not flipping my script so I can forget things. A lot of these projects are being revisited and refined as part of the COA project that we're going on right now, the comprehensive equations analysis. And as part of the next major TDP update, which we're going to be starting probably late this year, early next year. So a lot of these things are kind of carryover from old projects, so it might evolve as we go on. Express services, there is a bunch of express services that the CDP would like to bring back. All of these needs are unfunded. The three that are bolded at the bottom of the table, those are premium max routes. They used to exist. If this were to be funded, those routes will be coming back. Local services, which is the regular car bus service that you see on the road. There is a few routes that we would like to incorporate, including the bring back of the Yukon route, the Causeway Lumsden, and Spy Avenue routes. Lastly, another unfunded need is on-demand transit, also known as microtransit. There are a few zones throughout the county that would like to implement. Lastly, the CDP and pro report next steps. We got approval from the hard board this morning to submit the CDP to have DOT by March 1st. We're going to continue coordination with the health CPO and DOT. This is important to stay in tune with our partners. And we also need to stay up to date with the TAC rule guidance when it comes out from FDOT. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have questions on the presentation today? I have one, or at least a question in general about, so a lot of these you're looking to, reduce the frequencies back down to where they were pre-COVID, but how does that correlate with what you're seeing in ridership? I mean, or what are your metrics? Is it like if the buses are over half full, then we start saying they need to have more frequent routes? Or, how do you justify the need to go down to more bus activity? I guess that question.
Yeah, there are two things. So one is the attractiveness of the service or the usefulness of the service. Like that's a feedback we get from customers, riders, is that they would like the bus to come back more frequently, to be more convenient, they offer more flexibility. If you miss one, you don't have to wait an hour for the next one. But that's a big part of it. As for metrics and numbers, we look at passengers per revenue hour. So for every hour of service, we provide how many passengers are using it. So our average is 33 right now. We have routes that go up to 30, 35. The higher that number, more it's used, so the more likely it is to need more frequency. We look at loads as well. The average load, how many people on average are on the bus at any given time. That's what we look at as well.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Because 15, I mean, I know I'm not along these routes. I see a lot of buses going around with not many people on, from the conservational side of me, it's like, well, do those routes need to be optimized or moved or changed? But I know it's very difficult because certain ones at certain times a day, they may be more used than they are at other times a day. 15-minute frequencies seems really robust in my mind. Like, if I missed a bus, I would be surprised, but at least in the Hillsborough area, that one would be right behind in a 15-minute. It would be convenient, but if it's for the convenience of one or two people on an entire route, probably wouldn't be justified in my mind if, maybe make it 20 minutes or 30, because all of that is, it all adds up, as you can see with the funding and the number of buses and then, more people being hired to drive them and all, it adds to the strain on the numbers. But again, I don't know it. I'm just an observation. I'm just curious how you go about looking at them. So
it depends. It depends on other things like, city center routes might need more frequency. US 41 South County might not need more frequency. It really depends on context. As for the empty bus, that's an ongoing debate for sure. But yeah, it really depends on time of day, where you are. I think the bus is depending each route, it's probably more empty than if it's starting, things like that.
okay. And just on a side note, are any electric buses part of the future planning, or is that something you're looking at?
So that's a great question. So we have a pilot that's partially funded for testing out electric buses. I think we're missing a part of the match. I forget exactly which part it is, but and I forgot now. I think it's 2045 that we're looking like our target to be zero emission, but that's very loose.
Right.
Like it's not hard and fast. It really depends on funding. There's a lot of things need to line up for that to happen. Like we're struggling to get CNG buses, let alone electric or hydrogen.
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns. They haven't been implemented. I know there's a learning curve to them, and then the infrastructure costs are often overlooked when people see the cost of the bus, and like, oh, we get a grant, we can get the bus. There's a lot of money to get it, to get everything else set up, even be able to power it and use it. So, yeah, but it's certainly something. Just wondering if it was part of any of your future already funds, or is it, because there is a fair amount of money I see out there where there are promotions from federal government on trying to get buses, especially with the school system, but I think also with transit, regular mass transit.
Our fun fact, we are more interested in hydrogen than electric, because our buses drive 200, 300 miles a day. The average bus, some buses drive more, and that's like the range for an electric bus, but less. So we couldn't make it with an electric bus. No, some routes we.
Yeah, that'd be part of the, you have to implement them on those shorter routes, yeah, but understood, I understand what you mean, there is a capacity limit. Hydrogen, I would love to see you get involved in that, but there is, I think it's still, I don't want to say it's out there, but from what I've read, I don't want to say theory, but it's really all about the supply and finding a safe sourcing of the hydrogen. I think the technology is getting there, but the infrastructure is not able to. So I was looking at one for our office, a small scale, not a bus, but a small thing, but I can't get anybody to pull the trigger on it. So anyway, but I was just curious. Anybody else have comments on the report? Yes.
I know during the last meeting, there was like a new technology that Hart was implementing at our joints.
Had ADL.
Something kind of,
Yeah, is there any other new technologies that Hart is looking into in the next 10 years?
So there is two kind of deals. There's the bus one and the paratransit one, and that's like immediate, like very short term. And the other technology piece that we're incorporating is for bus stops, like real-time screens, electronic ink. So it's like a bus stop sign, but it's actually electronic, so it changes. And that's something we're looking at, and I think that's fairly short term as well.
Awesome. Seeing no other questions, it's not an action item. Oh, yes.
I just want to remind you, it's a good presentation. If you remember the greenhouse gas emission tool we developed, if you're ever interested in developing, comparing three scenarios, in other words, let's say electric buses, diesel buses, and show the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, particulate matter, reach out to me. Our tool is ready. It's gonna be online, actually, open to the public to be used. Yeah, hopefully so.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus. All right, last scheduled item is the Hart Flamingo Fair policy change.
Good afternoon. My name is Donnie Murray. I'm the manager of community and business engagement at Hart. Today, I'll be giving you some information about Flamingo Fairs and kind of new technology for us, talking about what is changing with our fairs and also what isn't changing with our fairs as of yesterday, actually. So I'll be talking about what it means when paper passes are going away starting this month. I'll explain what exactly is Flamingo Fairs. I will cover all the ways to pay your fare now on board the bus, what the phrase fare capping means, how someone would go about actually buying that fare, and then how they would use it on board. So a little background, if you've been hearing the word Flamingo Fairs, it has existed for quite a while now, just in different iterations, all the way back to 2017, when it was just a simple phone app, and it's developed and changed over time. In 2020, the initial version that we have now launched to the public, and since then we've added more and more ways that Flamingo Fairs exist as itself. Starting in 2024, at the beginning of 2024, PSDA over in St. Pete removed their paper passes and were solely Flamingo Fairs, so then we followed suit after them. Last summer, we did a public info process, making sure that we had all of our bases covered, and then our paper passes now officially went away as of yesterday, and we are solely Flamingo Fairs. So kind of the 5 things that we tell people to know, mainly for our main riders, that's changing starting as of yesterday, is that we are no longer selling or accepting paper passes. We still accept cash on board for one-way trips. The fares themselves are staying the same. We're not increasing fares. The amount that it costs you to ride the bus is not changing. Hart Plus for our disability users stays the same. And our Flamingo cards now have a $3 cost to get it. They were initially free during our transition. So some of the reasons why we're changing to Flamingo Fairs, the main benefit that we're trying to give people is saving them money. So the downside to paper passes was, one, for someone that may not have financial flexibility, they would have to pay a month pass up front, and not everyone has $65 all at once. Another thing that happens with these is maybe it's more convenient for someone to pay $65 if they know they're going to ride frequently, but maybe they're not going to use the full value of a month pass. Maybe they're only going to ride maybe 10 days, but it's still just more convenient to have one pass instead of buying day to day. Whereas now with Flamingo, you're paying day by day, but you'll never pay more than a day pass in a day and a month pass in a month. So it's just a lot more convenient for people saving their money that way. The other downside to paper passes previously was that they were just flimsy plastic. So sometimes the strip would get ruined, sometimes they would tear, or maybe you would lose it. Now with Flamingo Fares, it's a plastic card, so it's a lot more durable. Also, let's say something happens to your card, maybe you lose it or it does get damaged. If you create an account, the existing value on that card doesn't go away like a paper pass would. Now it lives on an account, we can just give you a new card, connect the account, and you haven't lost that money either. So Flamingo Fares also saves people money that way, so they're not losing that value with flimsy paper passes. The second main benefit of Flamingo Fares is saving people time. So the ability to pay your fare for the bus is now online. You don't have to go to a second location, figure out where these paper passes are being sold. You're not spending time pulling out $1 bill each time to board the bus. You can now pay your fare by downloading an app or simply tapping a card, and I'll get more into that. But essentially, it's in the palm of your hand now. So it's saving people time as well, and it's also saving us time so that on board, the actual process is faster. We're able to make sure that people can get to where they're going a lot quicker. And again, instead of waiting for one by one, each person pulling out, looking for their wallet, $1 at a time, that whole process now happens in advance. You've already loaded money onto your account. All you're doing now is tapping and you get on board. So the process for onboarding is a lot quicker for people, and it helps us with on-time performance as well. Another benefit from Flamingo Fares is, again, if you create an account, you can also set up what's called auto reload. So again, Flamingo Fares are loading money onto the account instead of having to worry about whether your balance is low. Just like how a SunPass toll works, you can just set a system where it says, oh, if you get down to, let's say, $3, it'll automatically reload money for you. So you just never have to worry about it. The whole system is set up for you. So again, that just saves you time too. You're never having to worry about it. And you also are confident that you'll, again, never have to pay more than that day pass or month pass amount. The last benefit internally for us as well is that our fare box is on board. So that system that accepts the cash and accepts the paper passes, they're really outdated. It's very expensive to try to replace that for the whole system. So again, we are still accepting cash, but a problem that we were having consistently with the fare boxes, with those paper passes, they would constantly get jammed, constantly be malfunctioning the system. So now with Flamingo Fares, we're able to not have to use those old fare boxes much, not have to worry about replacing them. Again, we're still accepting cash on board, but it just allows for that. And also to time-wise for staff, they're not having to go accept the cash on board as much and having to deal with all the paper passes as well. And then for Flamingo Fares, it is also the same system both for Tampa and for St. Pete. So for Hart and PSTA, it's all Flamingo Fares, separate fare amounts, but it's still the same card. So you know your type of fare doesn't change at county lines. You're able to travel between counties seamlessly. It's all Flamingo Fares. So what are the ways to pay for Flamingo Fares? The main ways are a Flamingo app, so just a simple free download on your iPhone or Android phone, or getting that plastic card. Again, that has just a $3 one-time cost, and it's plastic, durable, and contactless. For people that qualify for discounts, so for youth 18 and under, senior 65 and up, those with disabilities, disabled veterans, and those that have other disabilities such as visually impaired, or maybe have a Medicare card, they qualify for discount, cuts the fare in half. It's the same Flamingo card, it just now doubles as their discount ID. And the system will automatically notify, the system automatically knows that they're discounted, so they're getting that discount fare automatically. And then the other ways to pay using Flamingo Fares, you actually don't have to download anything for these systems. We now accept contactless, so tap to pay. So just like when you go to the grocery store and just tap your debit or credit card on the machine without having to insert or swipe, we now accept that on board as well. All you have to do is tap your contactless debit, credit, or prepaid card on the machine, and that works as well. That goes for digital wallets as well. So if you use Apple Pay or Google Pay or Samsung Wallet, or even with your smartwatch, we also accept that on board as well. As long as it has that contactless icon, that's the key. So as long as it has that kind of like for a symbol, Wi-Fi looking symbol, it's accepted on board for you to pay your fare. And as I mentioned, we are still accepting cash on board. We don't sell those day passes anymore. So it would just be $2 for each of your one-way trips. That is still available for people that need to use cash, maybe for just that one-time ride. And for someone that maybe hasn't gotten their discount card yet, students with a school ID, as long as they're 18 and under, can just pay $1 on board, or anyone with a Medicare card can just flash that card on board and just pay $1 to ride the bus. Here is a summary of all those options. So again, the path of least resistance for most people is going to be that contactless tap to pay. You don't have to download anything. You already have what you have. The only downside to that is that you're not getting all the account benefits. So I would always recommend if people want to, as I mentioned, set up auto reload, see your fare capping progress, they can just download the app or get the plastic card, create an account. But for all these ways to pay, you're still getting fare capping benefits, and I'll explain what that means later. But for every single way, again, as long as you're using the same card every single time, you're never paying more than the day pass in a day, never paying more than the month pass in a month. And for what services these apply for, Flamingo Fares is for all of our local routes, our limited express routes, and Heart Flex routes. Heart Plus for our disability users stays the same. That's still $4 for a one-way trip. And then as of now, the streetcar is free. So once you've figured out which method works best for you, the next step is actually loading that money onto the account. And there's 3 main ways to do that. So again, if you've gotten, instead of using your contact list, if you want to make an account, you can load money on the app. You can load money on the website, flamingofares.com. Or for people that need to use cash, they can go to the Heart Customer Service Centers, which are in person, downtown, and in the university area. This is just the same information, just laid out differently. So for people that maybe have different needs, for example, if they rely on cash and or don't have internet access, they may want to rely on our customer service centers. If people don't want to have a plastic card, they can use the Flamingo app. And if people need to have different load minimums, for example, if you use the card or the website, you do have to put at least $5 on it one time. So there's just different benefits and different features that each of those methods use. Now, what is fare capping? So as I mentioned, the fares for the Heart is not changing. Those are staying the same. So for each trip, you're paying $2, and a whole day, you're paying $4. And so what fare capping means is that the system recognizes how often you're riding, and it's going to cap how much you're charging based on your rides. So if you'll see in the example, so the day example, so if you ride once, you're paying $2. If you ride again, you're paying another $2. You paid your $4 for the day. So if you ride any more after that, every time you tap, you're not going to be charged. You ride free for the rest of the day. Now for the month, let's say you keep riding more than 2 times every day, so you're paying $4 every single day. After about 17 days, the math comes out to a little over $65. So once you've paid $65, after about 17 days of riding 2 trips every day, you've paid $65. So for the rest of the month, every single day, after you tap on board, you're not being charged. You've already paid the $65. You won't be charged for any of your other trips. On the flip side, let's say someone was buying day passes every single day. So they're paying $4, paying $4, paying $4. After 17 days, they paid $68, and then they would still have to keep paying for the rest of the month. So again, Flamingo Fares is really saving people money, making sure you're not paying more than $65. So that fare capping means you're just being capped. Again, if people are traveling over to St. Pete, it is a different fare system, so that doesn't apply. And then the other caveat is if someone wants to use the contactless tap to pay, it's important that they use the same method every single time. So like, let's say I have a credit card, but my credit card is also on my digital wallet. I can't use both, even though they're the same card, because the system recognizes it's a different type of method. So as long as I'm using that card, I can tap every time on board, and I'm still going to get the fare capping benefit, even without the account, even without having anything set up, as long as I'm using that same method. So again, if I want to use the digital wallet, as long as I'm using that same card on the same digital wallet every single time, I get the fare capping benefits. And then how to ride is pretty simple. You're just going to tap and scan for every single ride, just as proof of payment. So again, just because you're tapping doesn't mean you're getting charged. Just letting us know either if you're paying for that ride or if you've already been gotten that day pass or month pass. So you tap every time you ride. You're going to hold on the reader until you hear a beep and see the check mark on the screen. Then you're good to go. And that's how people use Flamingo Fares every time they board the bus. And then just some background information. We are working with our institutional organizational partners who maybe previously bought bulk passes. We've already reached out to, this was as of September, but the number has increased obviously by now. There's still a few more that we're working with or we just haven't heard back from yet. But if there are organizations, if there are partners, for example, homeless shelters that are buying those day passes, we do have an option for them. They can reach out to us. We can get them in touch with our finance team and get them set up for whatever method works best for them. We sometimes create different types of passes just for different organizations or create a portal for them. Sometimes it's just a one-off. So again, if there are any organizations out there that used to buy paper passes, we can work with them and get them set up onto Flamingo Fares, whatever works best for them. And then kind of talking about service levels, this kind of shows, this is just rides with Flamingo Fares for fiscal year 2024. That is pretty reflective of our general ridership level. So this isn't all ridership. This was just kind of during that transition period. So we were kind of talking about which routes, with frequency and things like that. So our biggest routes are Route 1 on Florida, Route 6 on 56th Street, Route 400 on Nebraska Avenue, Route 34 on Hillsborough Avenue, and then Route 12 on 22nd Street. So if you ever see buses on those roads, you're definitely going to see a lot of people on those buses. Whereas if you look towards the end of the chart, maybe Route 31 in South County, or the Route 46 on Brandon Boulevard, the Route 10 on Cypress Street, those are all hourly. And so because an hourly route might not work for everyone, whereas if that route had more frequency, there would be more demand. Sometimes you can't wait 45 minutes for the next bus. You're gonna have to rely on a car or a taxi. So all that to say, those are the lower ridership routes that may also need a frequency improvement. Also, sometimes too, when we talk about service improvements, the infrastructure in the area also really impacts whether we can increase frequency. Even if we threw on more buses on the road, sometimes if there's not enough lighting, if there aren't sidewalks, if there's not ADA crosswalks or boarding aspects, also distance between where the bus stop is and like if there's a parking lot or cul-de-sac, those are all factors that go into play with how we evaluate service improvements. But our goal is to always serve as much as possible for all of those Brooke County's geographic area. And in summary, your Flamingo Fares journey for anyone riding the bus, you're going to figure out which of the methods of Flamingo Fares works best for you. You're going to load money onto your account if you create an account, and then you tap and scan for every ride. And that's all I have for information on Flamingo Fares. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
All right, great. Thanks, Donnie. It was very informative. Certainly sounds like an upgrade to the system. It's hard for me to say. I'm not a bus rider, so I don't know the old one. I've seen a lot of reports, but one thing I think about is the tourist side. And there, if people come in and use the bus, they're looking for the most logical way. And I was reluctant to even move there, but you know, my phone is my life now and using the app, and that's what usually I think now is the first thing people look for. And it sounds like you've gone to contactless, set it up, basically QR code or whatever you call it, so you could go. And I think that's gonna relay good for the area and the agency for yourself. So that's a positive. Any comments? Sorry. Yes, Brian.
Just out of curiosity, what's the cost to HART to implement this program?
I have to get back to you on the cost. So as I mentioned, this has been in development since 2017 in lots of various forms. I have to get it. I could get like if you have a more specific kind of time frame on cost, maybe like annual. I mean, again, we've still just now gotten rid of paper passes. So if you were to look at like cost of receiving fares, we've kind of been duplicating our efforts up until now. So that was also the reason for let's finally put paper passes to bed. Let's solely focus on Flamingo Fares. So that also is going to save us money on collecting fares and fare collection in general. So I have to get back to you on the actual budget. Again, it's kind of, you know, there's been different layers of this project and timeline based on paying consultants, buying the infrastructure, one-time cost overhead, everything like that. And so going forward, we'll have a better picture of kind of what the cost is going to be. But again, the goal of this wasn't to try to get more fares from people. We're trying to make it equitable and make it easier for people to get on board.
Yes, Jay.
So having lived off of Route 1 for 17 years, I used to have to ask my bank to give me rolls of quarters to ride the bus, right? And I think the idea that you can now have your Visa card and just pop it and go really helps choice riders.
Absolutely.
100%. So I applaud that. It took a while, but I applaud HART for finally getting there to this because I think it's really going to help ridership in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just reduces that one barrier to entry. Absolutely.
All right. Great. Any other comments or questions?
We did just comment on Brian's question. So the amount we spent buying paper passes, like the blank ones to print them, it was like $40,000 a year. So that's one of the many things we're saving because of this.
Great. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thanks. Thank you. You know, we're going. Awesome. Large for them. But they before they printing them so often that they're all doing most of it. That's what I'm thinking. That is the fun or like turns just down to gas. That's yeah. That's like what. Okay. That ends all scheduled items. Is there any old or new business anyone would like to bring up? Sounds like a no. I'm not sure when the next meeting is, but I think it's the first Monday of February.
February 3rd.
That's my answer.
Didn't prioritize this meeting.
Okay, with that, we will end the meeting.
Thank you.